Breakdown is brought to you by Nurofen Zavance. Available every day at Chemist Warehouse.
Tēnā koutou katoa, good evening and welcome into the Breakdown. Well, what a week. So much has happened since the last Breakdown show, of course, after the Irish series. There was significant scrutiny on the All Blacks in New Zealand rugby during the week, which has led to significant change in the All Blacks setup. We will talk about it, we will dissect it all on the program, and we've got an exclusive sit-down interview with Ian Foster as well. The usuals join the show. Jeff Wilson, Mills Molina is back, and Isaac Boss as well.
What's he doing back?
Oh, he's a regular.
Seriously?
He's a regular. He's got the Irish smile.
Must be talking about the Irish celebrating.
Oh, you still celebrating?
That's the only reason
you'll
have
celebrating.
my 2 lines full there. That's about it.
You have to say, though, it has been some week. Has there been a week like this that you can remember in New Zealand rugby history? All the talk, the changes, it's all happened.
Well, admittedly, being away, I thought I would have bypassed all this. And by the time I sat back down here this week,
No
we would have been
chance.
talking about NPC and South Africa, let's reset. But I don't think there has been. I think it's been a really tough week. I've actually quite, as it sort of panned out now with the news today, I've liked the way Ian Foster's sort of handled it in the later stages, but there has been some big heat these last couple of weeks.
Well, 7 days, considering what we talked about last Sunday night, and we were dissecting in depth what had happened through the performance of the test, but now we've got a different coaching structure in the All Blacks. We've got different people, Kirsty, who are going to South Africa. We've got different influences, Joe Schmidt, part of the preparation, the selection of this squad. I think there's some wonderful, wonderful discussions that will happen in the next 2 weeks before this test.
Oh, it's going to be huge, isn't it? As you say, 2 people out from the All Blacks setup. A new person that has come in. We're going to talk about all of that, plus a whole lot more on the show as well.
Yeah, massive. I can't wait for us to look at and dissect the team, but more importantly, it's time for us now to hear from Ian Foster. Earlier on, I had the opportunity to talk to Fozzie. I asked him about the circumstances, the process, and I suppose the need for a change inside the coaching team.
Yeah, thanks, Goldie. Big week, and I think the number one thing is that we've come off a series that we didn't get what we wanted, and that's always bitterly disappointing as a coach and as a team. And so I guess the soul searching done after that's 100% I guess related to that. I finished the series and the changes we've made are ones that I think that the team needs, and so this is about what is the best thing for this All Black team to go forward and play better. And we like I said, we didn't get what we want. I basically had a process that I said to our leaders and senior players, you guys go away and have a think about where we're at and the things that we have to move, and give me any messages that you feel that I need to hear. And they did that. They also did a similar process with New Zealand and with New Zealand rugby as is normal after a series. And out of that, I think we've got a clear mandate that there's a strong belief in the direction we're going, but there's a feel that we actually need to get a couple of get a new voice in there and make some changes to get the gains that we really want to get. And part of their feedback was strong about their own leadership and things that they need to do better. It wasn't just about management, but there was a clear message about a couple of things. And so therein lies the rationale for the decisions that we've made.
So what are those direct responsibilities that Jason Ryan will take on board right now?
Look, Jason comes in as a forward coach, and that we've got a lot of belief. The players have a lot of belief in him as a person and as a coach. He's done a great job, particularly the last couple of years with the Crusaders in that area, and then we've also seen him transfer that into Fiji. And I think we saw the benefits of that international experience with him last year and this year. So he'll come in, and that's his main focus at the start. I mean, we need to get Jason in here and actually start working with him to see where that role, I guess, develops. But, primarily and early on, he's going to have a clear focus around the line out, our driving play and defence in that particular area.
In regard to the coaching group and the management team, from time to time the All Blacks have known to shuffle the cards, is to change the responsibilities. Does that mean you've gone through that process and Will there be a different responsibility for different coaches?
Look, I think right now, Goldie, that, we've got Scott, he's going to remain in defence and he's doing a good job, but we've got to keep working hard on that. We've got Fiki with the scrum. Jason comes in terms of the forwards. I'm going to do, in the short term, more of a role with the backs. And in behind that, I've got our original plan of, now's the time that Joe Smith was due to start with us as a selector, but also as an analyst, strategist, and behind the scenes, and particularly that attack side of the game. So he's working, was about to start work a lot with me behind the scenes there, and along with him and Andrew Strawbridge from a skill side, I think that we've got a nice balance in that area.
Look, the last 7 days, the team has been under so much scrutiny, yourself as well. What do you think the mindset is going to be when you guys get together and gather tomorrow as you prepare to take on South Africa?
Well, look, there's been a huge amount of noise, and let's face it, that's largely like our doing. We've got a big home series against Ireland, and like I said, is that we want to put our hand up and say we didn't get what we wanted out of it, and there was a series of drama. There was cards, there's all sorts of stuff, and a lot of debates, but ultimately, we were beaten by a better team, and we want to be better than that, and so we're going to South Africa. 2 tests over there. It's a tour. We've got some players in this group that haven't even been in South Africa, and with All Blacks, yet alone Super Rugby. So we've got to really quickly get focused on the gains that we want. But we've still got a strong belief in the direction that we were going. And just because it didn't come together as quickly as we wanted, it's not the first time we've been slow starters in July. I hate saying that, but it is reality. And we've got to speed up the gains we want. But, man, we just got to go over there and just, we're a wounded All Black team, and we've got a job to do over there, and we actually want to play a game that New Zealanders are proud of.
Fozzie, you've talked about the fact, key moments, the margins are small. With that in mind then, and what you've just said and the belief you do have, how close do you think we are to getting the best out of this group of players? Yeah,
look, I guess from my perspective, we're not that far away. We've had a series where we've had a whole lot of variables and that have been chucked in that have probably hampered the development we wanted. We've had COVID, we've had coaches in and out with that. We've had some key injuries, and that has meant we haven't actually quite had the flow on that we really wanted. But we know that we've got to be better than that, and we know we've got to deal with those. But I really believe in terms of some of the direction we're going. I think some of the things we put against Ireland, that even though we didn't get the results we wanted, that we dealt with aspects of their game that have caused us concern in the past, but we weren't able to put them together for long enough periods, and everyone can see that. So, it's a team that's trying hard, and we just got to calm down a little bit and start refocusing on some basics and just go out there and enjoy doing what we need to do.
So Steve Hansen, after the 2019 disappointment of the Rugby World Cup, talked about the team having to face genuine adversity to improve. This is probably the most adversity this team will face. Do you think in the long run this is going to be beneficial to your group, to the team and to the All Blacks as we prepare to the Rugby World Cup?
Yeah, well, I hope it's the most adversity they face, Goldie. Like, it's been a tough couple of weeks, there's no doubt. But, if we use this experience right for this team, and I'm not talking about me as a head coach here, I'm talking about this group. And this group is passionate about achieving, and this group's passionate about winning a World Cup. And people can say we may be a distance away from that. I don't believe we are. I don't think... we're connecting the dots. We've got to do it quicker. There's a couple of Achilles heels in our game that, we dealt with well in the RSC series, but they came and bit us in that third test. Now, we've got to sort those things out. And if we can, and then I've got an utter belief in the direction that this group's going. But, we've got a rugby championship now. We've just got to hoe into our work. We've got to get away from feeling oppressed a little bit by all the tension out there, and understand that people are frustrated, but at the end of the day, that doesn't help us. We need clear heads. We need a desire to go and play and fundamentally just start doing the things that we know we're good at.
So we understand, or it's been talked about, the fact that there was always going to be a review with New Zealand Rugby after the 2 games in South Africa. Is that still the case?
I would imagine so. I don't know that. I don't know what that looks like or anything like that. But I'd say, after all the noise the last week, I would assume that would be the case, and that's okay.
So I'm going to ask the last question. This is a hard question to ask because as a head coach, you know how important it is to have the changing room, the support of the players around you. What gives you that belief and sense that this group of players are still well and truly behind Ian Foster?
Yeah, well, I guess that's that's one of the questions that I got them to talk about, and I'm not in the room. It was just them, and with all the noise around, look, I mean, there's been a lot of people putting me under pressure for a long, long time. So in many ways, this is not new to the group, but I part of my job is to always go back and get an honest appraisal out of them about how I'm going and the belief factor. So I've had it loud and clear for them, but I also know that with that comes a massive responsibility. I mean, that's only one variable in it, is it? And so I believe I've got the group, but now I've got to deliver the plan. And so part of the changes that we've made are about making sure that I'm not taking for granted their belief in the direction that I'm heading, but I'm also listening to them and making the changes that we all feel we need for this team.
Fozzie, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your honesty and your time. Please prepare well, travel safe, and look forward to seeing you in South Africa.
Thanks, Goldie. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and awesome to be able to get that interview. So thank you so much, Ian Foster, for coming on and speaking. Very important to get your voice out there. And he speaks with a lot of confidence as well. After so much commentary during the week, his head was on the chopping block. That's what people were saying. Sam Cairns as well, the assistant coaches too. Now we've got Plumtree gone, Brad Moore gone, and we've got Jason Ryan has been added. Have we got what we wanted? Is this what they need?
Well, it looks like the players have got what they wanted, is what I took from that. He talks about the players, the group. And look, my first initial reaction is, were these, these heads circling around that chopping block before the series? Has this just emphasised something that might have been there beforehand?
I like the fact you asked that last question, Goldie, about the changing room, because he has come out, and admittedly, he's probably come out a little bit more stronger this week, and it sounds like he's a bit more confident because he probably has got the changing room. Now, I look at those players. It's so easy to be able to have that backing. But now the challenge is that you don't overdo it and give too much power to the players. So I like the assertiveness from Ian Foster at the moment. But now, what does he do? He needs to simplify things. He needs to, be real simple about the game plan ahead. Because from what we've seen in those last, 3 games, there was uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty amongst, possibly that leadership group that he's wanting to get, that confidence from. And when you go, in international games, you want world-class players. And when I wrote a few names down, because I said Taylor, Whitelock, Kane, Retallick, Sarver, Smith, Barrett, Bowden Barrett, and I think Will Jordan now fits into that frame. I mean, we're very light on world-class players when it comes to our backs. But what's more concerning is, that assertiveness that we're looking for and the confidence is amongst the uncertainty is amongst our world-class players. And that's perhaps now their voice to say, hey, we need some direction. This is why we've given this sort of, I suppose, feedback. We back Fozzie, but we also need a bit more simplistic, a simplistic game plan, or strip everything back so we can go. There's no doubt in my mind, I think we've got the players. We just need direction, and a better direction going forward.
Bossy, do you think when he said in the short term he's going to take care of the backs, does that suggest to you that they may have some other plans going forward? Look, I don't know if it would be fair now. They've made a change, they've made adjustments. Would it be fair now, after 2 games in South Africa, to then put them under review again, when clearly they're looking for a shift in their forward pack? Jason Ryan has come in to give them a little bit of expertise there. He's connected to a number of those experienced players you talked about. But when you hear that, are you thinking, you know what, they're also working maybe towards something else? And look, Joe Schmidt, I understand, doesn't want to be away from home. He wants to be close to his family. So is that a long-term option? Or is he just doing the role he wants to do right now with the All Blacks?
Yeah, and I think you're right, he's doing the role he wants to do. It's interesting, they said the players, his role's changed a little bit. Did they like the only week they had with him before that Irish test that they won? Did they they get confidence, they analyse it, and he's changed to be an analyst. And that tells me he's going to be an attack coach. If you're going to be an attack coach as well, you need to be able to direct your backs where you want them to set up the next phase, where you want them to attack. And that Joe Smith's always been a very, very good attack coach, a very good backs coach, and I think that's where his strengths was as a head coach. Fozzie says he's doing it temporary. I think when he comes back in the mould fully, that he'll probably take over that role. There's a lot of other names floating around that might be that backs person, but my experience with Joe is that's where he's really, really been strong, and that's how he leads the team's attack.
The interesting thing for me, Kirsty Mills, as well, is that I look at it, and you mentioned about where the players are at and the way that they're performing, and we've talked so much on this show about not having time. I'm a bit the other way. I think we've got a little bit more time than we think. We've got an end-of-year tour we can go on to continue to develop players and work on them, because the group of players we've got right now that have been selected for the Rugby Championship, that's it. That's the group of players we're going to have in the next 12 months going towards the Rugby World Cup. So if they need to make a shift, there are test matches at the end of this year, there are test matches before the Rugby World Cup, and then remember, there's usually 3 or 4 test matches during the World Cup we get to build towards the knockout phases. So if we are getting to the back end of the Rugby Championship and we're still searching for things, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, because we've started the process of change.
And that's why I think, to answer your earlier question before about, a review happening after South Africa, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, because, it's sort of, we can then, go back and say, are we heading in the right direction? Because we have got a little bit of time. Those group of players, like I said, I've got no doubt in my mind, we've got a good group of guys and some excellent players that can go win us, a Rugby World Cup. The key now is, how are we coaching these guys? What game plan are we actually going into this game so we don't get guys that are unsure about where everything's happening? Because when they're unsure about that, confidence goes out the window. They become individualistic, and then they're sort of unsure about where to go, and pressure comes on. We've never seen that in an All Black team. Well,
this guy, Sam Cane, his leadership, his position in the team has been questioned this week, hasn't it? But Enforce has come out strong. He's the guy.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And to back up what Millsy said, you've got your leadership group. If they're getting confusing messages and they're not confident in their core role, it makes the leading and the reacting and all that stuff that you see actually come out in the field, it makes that a lot harder. So if they're not confident in what the group they had or the coaching staff they had, then that's amplified in those situations.
And it rubs off too on the younger players. Then they're looking for direction as well. I mean, we've got quality players. As I said, we've got world-class players over half of the team. We've just got to make sure we're on the same page.
I'm going to say this, and this is symptomatic in so many different sports that are dealing with this now, right? This is a new generation. This is not the team that won the 2011 and 2015 Rugby World Cups. And there are a number of guys who hung on to 2019, tried to get us there and get us across the line. Your Ben Smiths, your Ryan Crotties, they hung in there. They were there right to the very end, still performing well as All Blacks. But the reality is we are transitioning this new young group you're talking about and trying to get them to a level of winning a Rugby World Cup. How long did it take that group through the 2000s to find a way to win a Rugby World Cup at home in 2011? So I'm not sure we're being entirely fair with the group of players either, given the standard they're being held to. They're being held to a team that was remarkable. Yeah. The interesting part for me is, though, essentially the backroom staff and all the staff have come from that environment, the previous one. And you've got to find a way to motivate and bring together not just the senior players, but the young guys who are now trying to become and establish themselves as international world-class players. And in this environment, that's incredibly challenging.
It's a totally different era. And we went through the same thing, 2004, 2005, we sort of changed. There's a lot that's always said, you can't reinvent the wheel, don't reinvent. You have to, because these group of players are totally different. They need to find their own rock action leader. I hear this all the time throughout the schools. And you're like, that's now old. We need to reinvent what we're actually trying to do. The pod system, we changed once again. We haven't done that since that era. And that's why I think when you look back at the review that happened last year, that was why I was a little bit disappointed with the NZR, because look at where Razor Robinson was. This is where he's great. But these are different athletes. There's a different beast. These are different sort of rugby players that you've got to try and motivate. So you've got to do them in a different way compared to what it was in the 2000s. We found took us a very long time to win those Rugby World Cups through a lot of pain. So these guys have got to find something different.
And Andy Farrell has advanced what Joe Schmidt created, right? He's moved it forward. He's taken it, you know. So all of a sudden, Joe Schmidt created something at Ireland. It then took someone else right now. It appears as though he's taken it to another level, Bossy.
And I think you're exactly right. He's put his own spin on it. He's changed it a bit, you know what I mean? Because he had to. It wasn't Joe Schmidt. This wasn't his campaign. He had to put his own spin on it. And I think with these new coaches coming in, they're going to have to put their own spin on it. But I go back to your point, and we have to make these changes. But do we expect that to happen in these 2 weeks in South Africa? So we talk about the pressure they've been under. These next 2 weeks, it's going to get harder, because what do we expect here in New Zealand? We expect them a change is a win.
Yeah.
But realistically, they've got, a week, 2 weeks to change that and go and get 2 victories in South Africa, Otherwise, we're not satisfied.
Well, let's talk about one of the changes, because it is massive news for Jason Ryan, and a huge congratulations to him as well. He's toured away at the Crusaders under the tutelage of Scott Robertson for the last 6 years. His winning percentage, 85% in 102 games and 6 titles. It's like Razor knew this was coming a couple of months ago.
Thanks, mate. One of my great mates, Jason Ryan, for being beside me the whole time. Mate, I love you. Best forwards coach in the world. Thank you.
Best forwards coach in the world.
No pressure.
Yeah.
No pressure. I now hope he's right. Let's just hope he's right and he can help. Look, I love Jason Ryan.
Yeah.
He's great to chat to. I think he's going to make an immediate difference. He's on the phone already. Perfect. It's information coming back. But look, it's a proven track record.
Yeah.
He knows how to win. The players obviously care for him, love playing for him, and he's got connections within the squad already. That's got to be a positive.
He's come out of the Fijian side, of course. This must have been a financial hit for New Zealand rugby to bring him across. But does he just slot into John Plumtree's role and automatically become the selector? How does it work?
Well, I'm not sure how it works, but he's got to slot in there, and he is the man. He is the assistant coach. He's got to go in there with what Razor Robertson said. He is the best forwards coach in the world, and that's what he's got to do. And I like this guy. I don't know him personally, but you know, forget what he's done with the Crusaders, because that's second to none what he's sort of done. I love what he's done with Fiji, because the way he came over last year and coached them, and the innovation that he brought with their big forwards and their line-out stuff. Awesome. They really put the All Blacks under pressure. So you know there's a quality coach in there. So I'd love to say, you know, he's got respect from his players, you know, from the Crusader guys, and you know the stuff that he's coming up with there's innovation there.
Exactly, and I think you look at it from what Fozzie's interview said. The players have spoken. You know, the leadership group we talked about. They didn't look confident in each other. What they were doing, let alone each other, were doing when they're playing Ireland. So if this player's spoken, we want Jason Ryan in there. The key players like your Whitelocks that are running your lineouts. He's comfortable having him in there to be able to. Let's not forget, he was a scrum coach mainly until a couple of years ago. You know, maybe one season. Greg Feeks remains in there as the scrum coach, and he comes in as an overall forwards coach. You know, so I think there's a direct message there that players again have spoken.
Well, we're just a couple of weeks away from the Rugby Championship. Starting off in South Africa, and the 36-man All Black squad has been named. Well, 39 to be exact, because there are a couple of injury replacements in that team. A couple of players didn't make it back in, Peter Sawakula and Carl Tuinukuafe, a couple of them. Braden Eno, Josh Dixon, Terrell Lomax all coming in as injury cover. Aidan Ross and Shannon Frizzell, the 2 big names that have been recalled, Jeff.
For me, I look at this, Ethan de Groot as well coming in. Overall, there was no one left to pick. This is pretty much everyone's fit and available, I think, let's be honest.
40.
We weren't far away, Mills. So we almost made it. And I feel for Peter Sawakula, because none of this is his fault. None of this is his fault. But what it is, and it shows to me, is that they've looked at the blindside flanker position and they've decided it's Scott Barrett or Shannon Frizzell, and that's the body we want, the line-out target, the size, the carrier, the physical presence that we want. That is what I noticed straight away. It's great to see Shannon back in there. They said he got through the body of work. Carl Tuinukuafe was never going to be available for this squad. Reality is Ethan de Groot was the guy they wanted to get fitter. He's gone away, he's dropped his kegs, he's in better shape. So this is the group, isn't it? This is your All Black group. My next question though, Mills, this is not about this squad. It's about the 23 that plays in the very first test match. And who are they, if they are, going to take a risk? Are they going to change, or are they going to finally get to play the team they wanted to play? Because they didn't get to play it at all against Ireland.
Yeah, well, it's interesting also hearing what Ian Foster said, the way we want to play. So what's their way? Is it above the ground, and especially over there and then in altitude? You know, do you know they want to actually run the South Africans around, having not been there for a wee while? They've got the athletes. You know, when I look at that group, and this I've mentioned earlier on, I'm confident in that group. You know, their ability right across the board. It's now about that way that Ian Foster's constantly talking about, the way we're going to play. So they've got to get them on. We've got to play to our strengths, and our strengths has been that. You know, the skill set. Our skill set has lacked in those July series. So we've got to get back to that level. But we've also got to make sure, Bossy, that everyone's clear about what this game plan looks like, because there's got to be a little bit of balance of kicking as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we know it's going to be tough, but I think actually getting out of New Zealand and going, it's just that group. They can isolate themselves away from a lot of the noise that they're going to hear from friends and family and every single media outlet. You know, going to South Africa, it's a nice time for them to be able to bond and feel like it's just them and no one else, that they can start coming to grips with that, the new game plan, all the new information, and there's no distractions. So I think that's the exciting part of it, because like you said, it's this group, it's the start of that journey, isn't it?
There's a lot of guys that didn't get to play, Kirsty, right?
Yeah,
There's a lot of individuals, Hoskins Satutu, Stephen Perifeta,
Will they get to play in the next couple of weeks?
I mean, that's the reality of, are you going to find anything out about this group, or do they want to get the chance to play Scott Barrett on the blind side when David Havili is at second 5'8"? Do they look at what they're going to do on the outsides? The big thing for me is we need to get in that back line, and you talk about experience, we need to get more playmakers in positions to make decisions quicker and smarter and identify space, because at the moment, Beauden Barrett's shift on the weekend, the amount of territory he covered to try and get himself and imprint himself on the game, the responsibility he put on his shoulders was far too much. He was out on his feet. You know, he played himself into the ground, and people say he didn't have a big impact on the game because of everything he was trying to do. We needed more players. It was the first game David Havili had played this year. So he looked not bad. I think we need one more decision maker in a key position, and to me it's, Geordie, I need you to step up, mate, at fullback and take over some of that playmaking ability, because you can run hard and run straight, your positioning, your defence is strong, but if you're at fullback, I need you to create. The one guy who becomes in that conversation when he's eligible going forward is Damien McKenzie once he starts playing for Waikato.
Well, the thing is with D-Mac is he's been there and done it before. So, and he's the type of player that really, you know, that can react to that sort of stuff. I think you're right. I think, you know, Geordie does need to have that. He needs to have the ability to balance his game up because he can. Because when you look at it also, you know, that midfield has been really disruptive. And so, you know, not to anyone else's fault, because they've had injuries. You know, key players have gone down. Anton Leonard-Browns, who was a good Hugh and co. For a number of those guys, so finding the right balance has been really messy. But a guy like, you know, Geordie, to actually get his balance right and get that confidence, perhaps that playing at second five has put him into that mentality of just running hard and getting, you know, that contact. But he would be, for me, the guy that I'd say that needs to sort of run that cutter a little bit. But D-Mac, man, I'm looking forward to what he will bring too once he's back in the fold.
For you, Bossy?
Yeah, and I think I think they would love to be able to pick him now, because, you know, he would take a bit of pressure off the Barretts and all that sort of stuff and things like that. But I think a key the one that they're missing is Anton Leonard-Brown. Yep. You know, it's just the cool, calm head that, you know, it wouldn't be a massive talker out there, but it's like Tana was probably when he was at centre. You know, he absorbed a lot and was just that rock solid centre. That
presence, right?
Yeah, it's presence. It's presence.
Had good vision, a good distributor, could offload. Was right place, right time, defensively really, really strong. I think for me, he is a guy that the All Blacks are missing. And remembering, we're not going to see him this season, so someone else has to take that responsibility.
Maybe for the end of your tour, maybe.
Maybe.
Hopefully. Was anyone unlucky not to make the squad or not to have a look in, like your Brad Webbers and Cullen Graces? They were mentioned quite a few times.
I'd probably say Peter as Gus Sokuli. I thought, you know, he didn't really get an opportunity, but didn't get a chance to be dropped.
Tough.
You know what I mean?
Tough.
So you got to take that one on the chin, the poor bugger. But
And will we see him again?
I will see him again. I think he's going to tear it up now. He'll go into the NPC and he'll tear it up. Like Bunnings NPC. I have no doubt about it.
Opportunity to pick another 9 in there, because I do think there's a bit of a gap between Aaron and the rest of them in terms of experience. And if he goes down, we just need that experience. So whether that's a Brad Weber.
Nines, they're always one extras.
They're one extra 9s. We can only pick 3.
You're qualified to talk about it.
There's a team of 42 or something. There's a little 39. You can take 4 of them.
15 minutes into the second half of the third test, the score's 22-17. There's a 5-point difference. And that's when they get an intercept and they get 3 points. But there was only 5 points in it. So when Ian Foster says that they're not that far away, I don't think we were ever going to dominate Ireland for 3 Test matches. They are too good a team for that. That was not reality. The fact we were doing our best to compete, and we probably done slightly better. But at 22-17, you're right there. And how often do the All Blacks come home over the top of sides?
That's momentum. That's momentum, and good when leaders are leading and things are going well. You can change that momentum like that. You get the right shift, and then it's game over. Those are those moments in a minute or 2 minutes. You know what I mean? You've been there. You've done that.
Yeah. But also, what I was disappointed about the first game is we absolutely blew them off the park. But we didn't get it. I mean, that second game was just so niggly. But we didn't analyse them enough to be able to go back out there and be a lot better. We didn't actually change the game plan. We didn't go in there. It didn't seem like in that third test when everything was on the line, you know, that we went out there and said we're going to bring something different and be on the same page. We're actually under pressure. And to come back at a test match at that, I mean, that's awesome. But we shouldn't get ourselves in that position, or should we then force a pass to get momentum over, right?
Well, guess what time it is? It is trivia time, your favourite time of the show. These two are about to get benched.
They're getting off the hook. They're off the hook.
But we're going to have 2 amazing people come in that will absolutely know the answer if you don't at home. But here is your trivia question. You've got a couple of minutes to digest it. And for you too, Jeff, no cheating. Who won the first Women's Rugby World Cup in 1991? When we come back, Taylor Johnson and Chelsea Semple will be joining us live on the program.
Shoves off Demont and continues up towards the 22. Offloads there to Coxedge. Kelly steps back inside and offloads again through Waterman. Hasn't gone forward. Steinmetz has got it. He's up towards the try line. Ends up giving a try. So Grace Steinmetz down that left-hand side.
And Northland still in possession. Murray getting a lot more involved now. The offload to Turner. Turner with the step. Turner with the finish. And that's a lovely fend from Holly Williams. Williams just one to beat. Thought about offloading. Holly Williams does offload. And here's the first try to Anna Lee Juricevic.
Spin this ball wide over the top. She's going to have too much pace as she's Campbell. Here comes Adamson. Going to get there too late.
They go for the crossfield kick and Renee Wycliffe, pure class. And that is just brilliant rugby.
Scrum was under all sorts of pressure. Some decoy runners and then the big pass out to Ioane, the try scorer. She gives it to Letaiga. 52 tries, make it 53.
Oh yeah, when you look at the Farah Palmer Cup over the first couple of weeks, women's rugby is absolutely thriving in New Zealand right now. And our trivia question for you, these 2 ladies will be able to help if you don't have the question yourself. Great to have you 2 joining us, so thank you so much for coming on the program. But the question, who won the first Women's World Cup in 1991? Jeff?
Oh, surely it's the Black Ferns.
Well,
I've been to the All Black Experience. All Black Experience, the thing on the wall, and there's just so many of those gold rings. We won world titles. I thought it was all of them.
I looked this up earlier a couple months ago.
Did you look it up?
A couple months ago, because they came to New Zealand. It's the USA.
It is the USA.
I just refused to say it. I had the USA written down there, but I refused to say it.
Well, the Black Ferns didn't play in that first one, did they? Because the first one wasn't actually sanctioned by World Rugby. But look at everything that we've won since.
Hold on, the first one
wasn't
wasn't
sanctioned. The first one wasn't sanctioned.
Oh, it doesn't count.
They re-sanctioned it, or they went back and sanctioned it a few years ago.
They sanctioned it afterwards?
They sanctioned it afterwards to actually acknowledge that USA were the original winners, 1991. But guess what? It is just 76 days before the Rugby World Cup opener at Eden Park. We want to fill Eden Park as well, so get tickets if you have not done so already. But how are you feeling? You'll be there. I don't want to jinx you, Jess, but hoping.
It has been the longest build-up ever to this World Cup, right, with the disruptions and everything that's happened in our team. COVID, it being put back a year. And to hear that it's only 70-something days away, it's just around the corner. And it's a massive, massive time in our game with FPC starting. There's selection coming up this week. So there's a lot of nervous players, including myself, out there. So teams being named for Laurie O'Reilly. Anyone could make it. And yeah, it's really crept up on us, and it's really exciting.
Well, you've been commentating the Farah Palmer Cup, and you were commentating the trial match a couple of weeks ago as well. So who stood up, who stood out? Who are some of these names that we should be looking out for when this team is named on Thursday?
Oh, absolutely. Having that trial match was a no-brainer from Wayne Smith because it opened the door for some of the players who had been there or thereabouts around the Black Ferns trial. And also some of the experienced players had come back, like Charmaine Smith, Victoria Sabritsky, Nafatali. We can't go past her. Like, the trial was fantastic. It was really one-sided, though, as we were saying before. Chelsea, your team just absolutely demolished the other team. And I think you've got to put it down to the 9 and 10 combination. They were outstanding. Arihiana Marino Tauhino and Victoria Sabritsky and Nafatali. I've had the pleasure of playing with both of them. Not only are they really talented athletes, but they're great leaders off the field. Victoria, you know, on and off the field, she's hyping everyone up. She brings such good energy. And Arihiana, while she carries everyone with her, she's worked really hard to come back from injury, and she's always doing the extras with the younger players and really helping everyone out. So I think they were the difference in that trial game.
Yeah, that was a set-up. Come on, it was a set-up when I watched that. It was an unbelievable performance. The forward pack dominated, but I think in regards to all of the things that have happened over the last 6 months, Chelsea, and in terms of preparing for this Rugby World Cup, if you compare this to what's happened in the past, and of course COVID changed everything, but in some ways you've probably had with Opiki and camps and a couple of FPC games, a trial and Lalaurie O'Reilly, a couple of test matches. In reality, everyone talked about you not having time to prepare. You said it's snuck up on you, but bottom line, that's because you've been so busy, right? So do you feel ready? Do you think the group feels ready?
There's been a few things that we have to take into consideration this year. The first thing is, it's the first time we've had full-time professional athletes, full-time paid women's rugby players, which makes a huge difference. It's become our job. So already, you know, that's going to make us so much more prepared physically, mentally. We've got all the right resources. Secondly, Goldie, you mentioned Opiki. What an amazing competition for us to not only see our top contracted players, but the next tier of players coming through. And as we came into Pack 4, those are the players that put their hand up, that were actually selected. We have so many young girls now putting their hand up to be selected, and the competition amongst spots in this team has never been so hot.
Well, you said to me before we came on the program that a few years ago you would have been able to pick this 34 easily. Now you can't. What's going to be the hardest positions to pick for Wayne Smith and Ted as well? Yeah, look, with the new coaching staff, it's brought a whole group of fresh eyes to the table. So players that would have been a shoo-in in the past, obviously, have missed selection. And there are positions that I think are just so hotly contested. I have no idea what's going to happen with them. And one of those positions is in the loose forward trio. We've got the young girls coming through, such as Kaipua Olsen-Baker. We've got Liana Makeli-Tu'u, Tawhitu Lafayette. We've got girls coming back from injury, and Kennedy Simon, who was the Black Fern Player of the Year last year. And then we've got the older girls who are coming back from injury, Charmaine McMiniman. We've got Les Elder still in the mix. So that area for me is just so hotly contested, and girls are performing. And I think there was the trial that gave girls the opportunity to perform, but there's been 2 rounds of FPC now, and every game I watch of FPC, someone new stands out. And people who I've got in my mind selected, it's changing after every game. The loose forward trio, but I think more hotly contested is just the whole back line, because we've got the backs who played at Pack 4, and a lot of the backs performed really well. We had girls again coming back from injury to play in that trial match. But then we've got the Sevens girls as well, who are all putting their hand up to play in this home World Cup. And in past years, I would say the Sevens girls, because they were the full-time professional athletes, they'd slot straight back in. Our game plan didn't change much. However, this year, we have a whole new coaching group, a new game plan. It will be harder for these girls to slip back in. So, I mean, amazing athletes, and they still 100% have the ability to do so, but it will be harder, and it's going to be interesting. Well, we are going to talk about our Seven Sisters, but before we do, 4 years ago on the Gold Coast, can you believe those 4 years have gone so quickly? It was one of the most thrilling games of Sevens you'll ever see, our Black Ferns Sevens against Australia.
Portia Woodman, her first run of the final. One-on-one with Pelite. Around Pelite. Cover from Caslick. Can she make the tackle? No. Here comes Tonegato. Will she have the pace? And Portia Woodman gets the first try. That's too long. Here's a chance for the Australians. Can they make the most of it? Cherry's on the outside. Can they get it to her? Yes. Emily Cherry gets the try. The Australians are back in it. Tonegato's got Green on her outside. She's only got Blythe to beat.
Green, Blyde doesn't make the tackle this time, and Elliot Green scores for Australia. We're locked up in the women's gold medal match. Straight down the middle of the park goes Brazier. The chase is on. Who is going to win? New Zealand. Brazier for the corner. It came from nowhere. And Kelly Brazier has won the gold medal for New Zealand.
That was a remarkable day. Double gold on the Gold Coast for the final day of the Commonwealth Games. Our Sevens teams will be back in action in Birmingham on Friday, and we'll have all the action for you live on Sky as well. But you can't forget that moment, can you? You will never forget that.
Absolutely. I still got butterflies just watching that moment because everyone was just willing Kelly Brazier to get there. And then you spoke about it. The Sevens girls could come back into the mix, but that causes all sorts of headaches because you've got so many good wingers already, but you still need to find places for people like Portia Woodman and Stacey Flula. But then you look at Tyler Nathan-Wong for the Northland Codian FPC in the 15s game. She just plugged holes and played any position. Will she come into halfback? Will she go to 10? Will she go to fullback? And, you know, as Chelsea said, you know, previously they would have been a given into this team because they were the only full-time professional women in New Zealand. Now they've got the 15s girls to contest with. And look, it's going to be selection headaches for Wayne Smith. But one thing I do really love about having a new coaching team is that there's no loyalty to the old players. They're coming in with a fresh mindset so they can pick the new players. There's nothing really tying them to the old ones.
That's why I want the TAB to get the odds up. I want the odds to go up because my money is on the Black Ferns hands down in terms of the fact you've had the opportunity to prepare. We've seen some of that new talent come to the fore. It's put the pressure on the experienced players. But more importantly for me, all of a sudden you've had that opportunity to build. You'll get games in the World Cup itself to build towards the quarterfinals. The side of the draw you're on is pretty good in terms of if you do the job in your pool, which I think you will and do comfortably. And then you've got three people who know how to win. They are winners, proven winners leading in Sir Graham Henry and Wayne Smith who have been there, and Mike Cron. So you add that into the mix, to me, this is the perfect storm. Everyone worried about us having not enough time. I'm telling you to get on. The moment you can get on, you are going to win and lift this trophy. I 100% believe that because we've seen a shift through opportunity and the fact you've now got the chance to be the team that you're destined to be. And there's young talent. You talk about it. They're putting their hand up. The pressure's going to be on, and the Laurie O'Reilly's the start of it, right? 2 test matches.
Yeah, Laurie O'Reilly's going to be huge. And as the coaches have made sure we all understand, the team that's selected for Laurie O'Reilly is not necessarily the World Cup team. It's another form of a trial for us leading into World Cup. The FPC is going to continue to be a trial-based competition. And that's why I think we've seen the level of FPC go up so many notches just this year. So I think, it's the next few weeks, it's going to be interesting to see what unfolds. And one thing I will say is I know the Sevens girls, although they're focused on comm games and stuff at the moment, they're doing a lot of work in the background, watching all our clips on Sports Code and stuff from trainings, from games, and doing a lot of work with Smithy in that as well, so that if they were to come back in, they're not going to be starting from scratch. They'll be up to speed with everything that's happening. So it's going to be a fair, even playing ground, and
It just happens to be the busiest year for rugby for Sevens, doesn't it? The Commonwealth Games, of course, the Sevens World Cup, the 15s World Cup later on. Who would you like to see from that Sevens team?
Oh, definitely Portia Woodman. She is just a game breaker. You give her the ball and she'll score a try. But it is really difficult because, as I said, there's 5 players in that Sevens team who were at the World Cup in 2017. In fact, only one player isn't playing anymore, and that's Christina Sue. So do the coaches look at that experience and say, these girls won us a 2017 World Cup, they can do it again? Or do they go out on a limb and go for the youngsters? Like, look at Aisha Letiinga. She's outstanding. You know, she's almost like Portia 2.0. You know, it's so hard. And then in forward pack as well, there's only 5 people returning from the 2017 World Cup, and that's where those youngsters are coming in. You know, the Joanna Nanwu, she was outstanding as well. Kaipa Olsen-Baker, Liana Mikaela too. There's just so many, but you've got the 2017 team to thank for that. There's a reason why these young girls started playing rugby. It's because we were winners, and we're just so deserving of having a World Cup here in New Zealand.
It's an exciting time, isn't it? It is so exciting.
It is, and to me, with selection and who comes in and stuff, there's got to be conversation about combinations. Yeah. That's such an important part of putting a World Cup winning team together.
That's what happens when you sit in JK's seat. You start talking about combinations. Or you sit in JK's seat.
You're filling it perfectly.
Exactly. All of a sudden, we've got to talk about combinations. What happens going forward? That's generally where he ends up.
Well, it's true though, Goldie.
Yeah, he's right. I'm not saying he's wrong. You're right.
As a midfielder, to me, my game will change completely depending who my first five is, who my centre is, how much the back three are talking to me. So if you just start chucking players who are performing individually so well in, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a winning team. Yep. It's all about combinations to me.
Thank you, ladies, so much. Taylor Johnson, Chelsea Semple, we look forward to seeing your name on the sheet next Thursday when it is named. And go and get tickets for the Laurie O'Reilly series. Game 1, August 20th in Christchurch. If you can't get down to it, it will be live on Sky Sport as well. Plenty more still to come on the breakdown. Up next, we go to South Africa, to Cape Town, and catch up with the Supersport voice of rugby, Matthew Pearce. No, my Hoki, my welcome back into the breakdown. We've got the boys back off the bench.
Made the cut, back in there again, didn't get dropped.
I'm just glad you decided to show up this week.
I made a career out of being a substitute.
Welcome back.
We don't have much time left on the program, so time now for us to head to South Africa because we're only a couple of weeks away from the All Blacks. Heading over there, the voice of rugby in the Republic, Matthew Pearce, joins us from Super Sport. Great to see you again. It has been far too long, our friend. How is everyone reacting to the July internationals, both in South Africa against Wales and the All Blacks here?
Kirsty, it's great to sort of virtually see you all again. Can't wait to see Jeff and others out here. It's been way too long. Just reflecting on the fact that the All Blacks haven't played in South Africa since 2018. It's crazy. So the sense of excitement, the sense of anticipation is fabulous. Don't be fooled. There's no sense of optimism, or too great a sense of optimism here after observing the results down in New Zealand these past few weeks. I think we all agree for both sides, there's nothing like an All Black Springbok test match to bring the best out of each other. If you think back to last year, the 100th test in the extraordinary venue of Townsville, North Queensland, between the two countries. You know, the previous week, the Springboks had been well beaten by the Wallabies in Brisbane. And it just took the reignition of that rivalry to bring the best out of them. And they came within a kick of winning that game in Townsville, and then got across the line against the ABs a week later down in the Gold Coast. So I think these two teams, regardless of what's gone before, they bring the best out of each other, and long may that last. You know, there's no reason for overconfidence. If I want to tell the New Zealand public some good news, well, South Africa haven't beaten New Zealand in South Africa since 2014. So let's reflect on that and the amazing games that the All Blacks have won coming from behind in South Africa in recent years, including in 2018 at Loftus Versfeld. So there's no sense of complacency out here, I can assure you.
And saying that, though, I mean, you think about where New Zealand rugby is right now. We've probably never been this vulnerable. We've had to make changes with our coaching staff. But in regards to what you're looking at, you've brought back a couple of senior heads. Francois Stein's still playing, is he? He's been around 20 years already. But is that a sense that that's just once again preparing for the All Black challenge?
I think so. I think that was always part of the plan, Jeff. You know, this the planning happened a long time ago, and both Frans Steyn and Dwayne Vermeulen were out with injuries, and they were never going to be part of the series. I think if you look at it from another perspective, the Springbok coaching staff had planned the three matches against Wales 3-4 weeks in advance in terms of who was going to play in which test match. And you will have seen over there, they took a pounding from fans and various sectors of the media, supposedly for disrespecting the second test match by making 14 changes to the starting lineup. But a commitment had been made that all 42 players in the squad would get an opportunity against Wales. And The first test was an unconvincing win. They trailed by 15 points at half time, actually did a pretty good job to come back and win that. But once that test match had been won, the coaching staff wanted to see every member of the squad in a test that counted for something. You know, there was a series on the line. They came within a Gareth Anscombe conversion from the touchline of going 2-0 up in the series with those 14 changes. So that test counted for something. They didn't want to throw them in a dead rubber if the series had been won by the time they came to Cape Town. And I think they've got a very good look at who can perform at that level under that kind of pressure. Jaden Hendrickse, he kept his starting berth ahead of Faf de Klerk in the third test. We've also got Cheslin Colby out injured now, as you will have seen. And it'll be interesting to see, does Kurt Lee Arendse get his opportunity straight in against New Zealand with Colby injured, given the performance he gave in a losing cause against Wales in Bloemfontein. So I think there was always this plan. These two players were always going to come back into the Rugby Championship mix if they prove their fitness, and they have.
I'm going to say, I knew we should have had you on the top of the show. We've only asked 2 questions and you've taken 5 minutes.
I love how you butter us up.
5 minutes. You couldn't wait to get back on our TV, and now you couldn't stop. Mate, I look forward to seeing you. I'm bringing the peanut slabs. They're on the way.
How many do you want? How many peanut slabs?
How many peanut slabs?
As many as you can get into your luggage, I will take. I have missed peanut slabs.
Matthew Pearce, thank you so much for joining us. He's brilliant.
He's brilliant.
From Supersport in South Africa. And you've got, what, a bag full of peanut slabs for him?
Yep. I'm taking them for me, though. I'm taking them for me, not for him. So
brilliant to get you two. Brilliant to have you back on, both of you, in fact, and great to have you joining us as well. We'll be back next Sunday to do it all again.
Between the All Blacks and the Springboks is underway. Will Jordan scores. All Blacks in early.
Wow, that is one of the most bizarre tries you will see.
Looking good, and the game is over, and the All Blacks win the 100th test between the two countries.
Oh, brilliant ball out the back. The Springboks are in. Barrett with the kick out to the wing. Sevu races in the corner. Mapimpi scores, and the Springboks win.
Breakdown is brought to you by Nurofen Zavance, available every day at Chemist Warehouse.